Hi, everyone. This is Zach, co-founder of HR technology and consulting company, Elgin LLC. And I'm here with Ali, professional services architect from Snaplogic.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks. So today we're going to be talking about employee document automation. So there's sort of two components to this. And the first is automating the employee folder structure inside of your digital repository of choice. In this demo, we're going to use Box to go ahead and highlight how this piece works. But essentially what we're doing is looking at your metadata inside of Workday and pulling information out to create a folder structure. So terminated employees into one section, active employees into another, and then a bunch of subfolders that'll be created for each of those that'll work as the repositories for files that will come from each of your systems inside of your ecosystem as you need them to, or as they become available. So the cool part about the folder automation and creation is that because it's completely hands-off, any hire activity, termination activity, rehire activity is going to be captured so that your file folders will be self-maintained. You won't ever have to go in and make a move or do any audit functions. Like, it will just all 100% in an automated fashion work. Every single folder also has employee identification on it. So with an employee ID, in this case coming from Workday, which also means that your digital records become highly searchable and you de-risk the potential of accidentally putting in a duplicate name or duplicate number or juxtaposing keys or something like that, right? You won't have those kinds of mistakes happen anymore. That won't really be possible. So all of that together is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money just up front. And that also frees you up to go ahead and focus on other tasks that you want to tackle. And so you've got your employee folder structure working on its own. Now you get the added benefit of also having files populated into each of those folders. So, looking here, we can see we've got information coming from Workday. We'll have files come over from JobVite, like a signed or executed offer letter. We'd have stuff coming from 7Geese, like your OKR performance or other annual review metrics. We'll pull in your transcripts from SkillJar, which is a learning management system. Things from DocuSign, so other contracts or pieces that were accepted. Maybe this is where you accept a promotion offer or a pay raise increase. And then from Expensify, which is a way to track your expenses over time. And so we can pull a report out of that and also centralize all of that into Box. And even though this is already a lot and a ton of value in what we're demonstrating, this is infinitely scalable. You could use it for any sort of system that you needed to inside of your ecosystem, and we can incorporate it into this design and just provide that value to you. So really, there is no limit to the customer's customization, the value proposition, and the extent to which we can tailor what's available. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, Ali, I know we got a ton of stuff to poke into to kind of see what's going on here in Snaplogic and Box and all these other systems. So can we hop into that and start taking a look at how this works?
Yeah, definitely. So here we have a pipeline that will retrieve employee information from Workday, which is the system of records for the employees and the driver of this integration. And I'm just going to go execute this pipeline as I speak through it. So what's happening is this pipeline will create the folder structure for this employee within Box. It will then check the relevant corresponding systems, such as SkillJar for learning management, 7Geese for performance, Expensify for expense reports, JobVite for applicant tracking, as well as DocuSign for signatures of documents. It will retrieve the attachments of those systems and then upload those attachments to the proper folder within Box. So as it is executing, it's also calling child pipelines. So I will click on child pipeline. This child pipeline will actually create the file within Box. So it is taking the attachment from the the third-party systems such as SkillJar, Expensify, DocuSign, and is actually creating that file within Box. For the file creation, the folders would also need to be created. So we have a child pipeline that will actually create the folder structure within Box, whether the employee is a hire, a rehire, or has been terminated. So each of those three scenarios will cause a different folder to be created within Box. So I'm just going to go back to check the status of, yeah. So we see the pipeline has completed its execution, and we created a sample employee called Bob Smith with an employee ID of 21762. So let's look up Box to see what happened. So basically, I'll just go to the top level. So we have a sample file structure. We see a folder called active and a folder called terminated. So Bob Smith is an active employee, so we'll click on that. And each of these letters that we see here corresponds to the first letter of the last name of the employee. So Bob Smith starts with the letter S, their last name. So we'll click on this S folder, and we see Bob Smith listed here, along with their employee ID. So clicking on the Bob Smith folder, we see the corresponding subfolders: lifecycle, performance, training, expenses, and compensation. And clicking on those folders, we see the corresponding files associated to that employee. So Bob Smith resume, clicking on this would be from JobVite. So we see this is just a sample resume that we have uploaded within JobVite for Bob Smith. So closing that. Policy document, this is from DocuSign. And so this is just a sample signed document for Bob Smith, signing the policy document. And then here we have the offer letter. This is actually from Workday. And this is just an example offer letter that was uploaded. And just going back, we see performance. Performance is from 7geese. And I'll actually open, so this is the Bob Smith profile within 7geese. This is the Bob Smith profile in JobVite, is being referenced by the pipeline. So just clicking on the OKR, we have it generated as a CSV. And we see essentially the objectives and key results information tied to Bob Smith. Just going back. Training information is coming from SkillJar. So this is Bob Smith's user account. And a lot of the references done with these systems is based by the email. But you could certainly have a different identifier, such as some sort of an external ID that you want being referenced. So here we have a transcript listed. So we have the transcript information tied to Bob Smith, course title, completion date, and you could also have additional fields based on what you want to track as well. And you have expense information, so you could have expense reports. These are all the expense reports tied to Bob Smith. So just going back to the pipeline. So that's for a hire. So when someone is terminated, their folder information will get, basically their entire folder structure will get sent to the terminated folder location within Box. So in other words, so just going back here, so clicking on, just going folder upwards, another level. Okay, so we see this terminated location. So clicking on an example employee that has been terminated, Sam Roberts, employee ID 21146. So previously, this folder information was in the hired or the active location, and now they're in the terminated location. So all of their folder information is moved from active to terminated. So you still have that history there of that terminated employee. And then the third scenario is when the employee is rehired. So I'll just go to a sample rehired employee. So going back up to active, we'll go to Brandon Harris. So Brandon Harris was previously terminated, but then rehired. So what happens is you see these new folders created for the new hire or for the rehire action, but you also get an archive of the past information, the past files tied to Brandon Harris. You also get a date stamp associated to when that employee was rehired. So just clicking on that. So you have an archive of the past employment, the previous employment of Brandon Harris, of this rehired employee. So yeah, so you have this parent pipeline. It is actually creating the folder structure for that employee. And it's also pushing the files to Box. You also have additional child pipelines, and this is to check whether the employee is a hire, a rehire, or terminated. And this pipeline will actually tell Box where to create the folders. So if the person is a hire, create the folders within the active folder structure. If the employee has been terminated, create the folder structure in the terminated folder structure within Box. And if the person has been rehired, move the information from terminated back to the active location, but in archive. And one thing I also want to clarify, when an employee is terminated, their file information and their folder structure is moved from active to terminated. So in other words, going to Bob Smith as an example. So if Bob Smith were to be terminated, all of this information here, all of these files and folders here will be moved to the terminated folder location within Box.
Super cool. So I want to jump in real quick.
Sure.
So we're talking about moving things around based on, a check inside of, in this case, Workday for somebody's status, whether or not they're terminated, hired, rehired. But documents get added sort of in between those lifecycle events for other cases, right? Like I might have taken a course inside of SkillJar, and we want to make sure that if there's an update that's reflected inside of Box. And so this pipeline, or really collection of pipelines, accounts for those employee metadata changes, but then also can be triggered or run on a scheduled task to pull in any new document that pops up for any of the systems we have connected here, right?
Right, absolutely. So it will actually update the folder structure with files as they're being created, as they're being generated. So it's definitely extensible to that use case as well. It's not just upon a hire or upon a termination.
Yeah, it's super cool. And there's also sort of a modularization thing that's available here too, right? Both from using multiple pipelines together. So you could invoke one pipeline or children pipelines from different parents, which could be useful. That's a really nice like Snaplogic feature in general. I think that's really well on display here. But likewise, I think that first subfolder you showed for a hired employee, it had items from in the lifecycle folder, things from the applicant tracking systems. We had JobVite, Workday, and DocuSign all reflected inside of a lifecycle folder. And I think it's really interesting because that's three separate systems. We could add another system on there, or maybe we're migrating from one system to another later. And it's just a matter of swapping out that one component of this pipeline, plugging it in, and there's no disruption, right? Everything just continues on the way that it is right now, which is to say, kind of in a perfect state.
Oh, absolutely. And you can also have it such that either, if you like, you could have the pipeline run on a scheduled basis to check to see if there are any updates in the relevant source systems, or you could have it be triggered. It's definitely up to up to you and your use cases and requirements. So Snaplogic is definitely compatible with that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Can we jump into the pipeline again real quick?
Yeah.
I want to show viewers, we're talking about communicating with all these systems, pulling information in. The pipeline gives us a really good graphical representation of like what's going on, and even like changes colors as it processes through the pipeline to let you know like, hey, it's all green, which means that everything went well, right? It executed. Can we take a look at like a connection to one of the systems so we can
Yeah,
see
definitely.
what that looks like?
Absolutely. So I will open up, I will zoom in, and I will open up, for example, JobVite. So here with JobVite, as mentioned earlier, we're doing the reference based on the employee's email address. So here we have the candidate email being pulled from Workday. And so the JobVite API is called to look up that candidate or employee within JobVite based on that email address. And once we have that information, we're actually getting the candidate artifacts, in other words, the attachments associated to that candidate or new hire within JobVite. So there's a JobVite API that would actually pull the attachments from JobVite associated to that candidate. We're pushing that and writing the JobVite file, in this case to Snaplogic. And then from Snaplogic, the file is getting pulled and created within Box. And I will open up that. Yeah, this is the pipeline. So it's actually pulling that file within Snaplogic and writing it to Box.
Got it. Super cool. And I think one of the things, that's also worth calling out is like, you're looking at the API piece on that Snap to connect to JobVite, and it doesn't look much more complex than like, typing in a folder directory. I mean, I know it's slightly more complicated than that, but this is not something like what you would see if it was like a Python script or a PHP script, right? Like it looks a lot more like a drag and drop, or the heavy lifting is happening in the background somewhere.
Right, exactly. And that is one of the benefits of having these snaps. They are pre-built connectors, and a lot of the configuration is already done on the back end. So it's literally just inputting your configuration details and clicking execute and watching your integration in action in real time as it's being executed.
Yeah, it's super cool. And then there's another feature I really like, I want to highlight here too. You're building the whole thing out. Maybe there's something you want to do and you're like, hey, I think maybe this is the snap for me, but you're not sure. There is a help text or help option to go out to real documentation with samples and everything else on display, right? Like right there in every snap.
Absolutely. So every snap has this question mark, and what this question mark does is upon the click of it, it will take you directly to the Snaplogic help site for that particular snap. So in this case, I clicked it for the directory browser, and the directory browser and the help information in general provides details related to the snap. Many times it provides examples, sample pipelines, and additional test cases that you can utilize for your pipeline implementation and creation. So it's definitely something that's helpful, and I use it all the time.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, from a solutions architect perspective, I mean, it really can't be beat. It's awesome, and it stays up to date, and there's hyperlinks everywhere taking you to really whatever you need. I don't know that I've hit a point that I can't get an answer from that with enough
Right.
digging and reading. If you are watching this though, and you're thinking that still looks like it's a little over my head, or I'm not really super technically savvy, I'm a business practitioner, I'm an HR practitioner, don't feel like you got to do this alone, right? Go ahead and reach out to Snaplogic. Talk to us at Elgin LLC. We're a solutions architecture consultancy, specifically with deep expertise inside of the human resources and shared services spaces. This is what we do. We love to do it. And it's all powered by Snaplogic, which is a fantastic tool. So for sure, reach out. Don't feel like you got to, go through this entire process alone.
Absolutely.
Great. So we've seen employees picked up from Workday had a folder structure created and automatically maintained, files coming from all kinds of systems across an ecosystem going directly into the subfolders that they should be going into. All of that has got the employee ID on there to help you find the folder that you're interested in, so that's searchable inside a box. Really a pretty awesome solution. I mean, you're pulling together 6-7 disparate applications and data sources into one place. And we saw it execute in real time. That seemed like it was really quick. That's typical for what we can expect from Snaplogic performance?
It is, yeah. I mean, and the beauty of it also, in addition to the speed, is you can actually see it being executed in real time. Upon click of the validation button, you can actually see which snaps are succeeding. If any, if there are any issues, you can troubleshoot and see exactly what happened and what caused the issue, all within the screen, as well as the dashboard, and it'll provide additional information with past execution. So it definitely provides a wealth of information regarding the pipeline execution.
Yeah, that piece is fantastic, and the real time feedback as you're going through and you're architecting something. I mean, I've noticed with my own work, a 5 to 10x sort of efficiency gain doing this method as opposed to doing an old school, and it is old school at this point, Python composition, PHP composition to connect to a system and try to actually orchestrate something. Right, that is so much slower and so much more painful than doing something like this. And while this workflow is fairly complicated, I mean, we're looking at it, I'm like, man, that's awesome. Snaplogic is something that you can get someone who maybe hasn't done a whole lot of that programming, wants to do something with integrations, and there's a low code, no code option available here to them to do some of that activity in a way that's just not possible when you're actually having to hard code some pieces together.
Absolutely, absolutely, and definitely having it visually there instead of hand coding, and writing out the various schemas associated to it, and you can actually see it there, point and click. It's definitely miles different than the monolithic way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, very cool. I think we'll go ahead and call it here. So to recap again, we automated out an entire employee file folder structure, and then also all of the file pulls and document store. So totally self-maintained. If you are a large enterprise, that is just these two things that we showed you are going to save you a ton of hours per year. It literally can be thousands of hours. That's not uncommon. We've worked with customers where that's what they're spending on this activity, just to make sure that everything is sort of pulled together. And because they're doing it manually, there's invariably some type of error or mistake that's happened, or things fall out of date. And then there's a really big audit effort to kind of get things back into a structure that where it should be. With this, all of that goes away. You save time, you save money, and you free up that opportunity cost for your people so they can focus on things that they're really good at, and that they don't really want to these other things that they don't really want to do, right? Like let the machines take care of the things that machines are really good at, so you can focus on the things that you and your people and your peers and your team can focus on that machines are not good at. So we'll call it there. Ali, thanks for taking us on a tour through the solution. It's awesome. And if you, the viewer, are watching and you have any questions or want to reach out and see how we can help you, contact Snaplogic, contact Elgin LLC. We'll get a conversation going and take it from there. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.